He's one of those few people who grew up in the state of Wisconsin, played for the Badgers, drafted and played for the Packers. He is Jared Abbrederis. Abby, certainly appreciate the time and having you jump on with the packed summer here.
Good to be here. I appreciate it.
So, would you say Packers fans were able to connect to you because of those things? Because you grew up in rural Wisconsin in Wautoma, you played for the Badgers, people knew about you and your game, and that's why people just wanted the best for you because, well, you were one of us, man. Like you're a guy from Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, people watching my career, how it started, a walk on, people can respect the hard work that it took. But then also just, had some good years down in Madison and was able to give, I guess a lot to the team, and hopefully the fans appreciated that time there. So I think that's part of it. And then being a Wisconsin kid growing up here, being drafted by the Packers, it's it probably was an easy story to root for. Obviously, the NFL didn't turn out quite, how I would have hoped. It was a great experience, and still, as a kid, that was a dream come true. So, everything happens for a reason, through the good and the bad. And it was, like I said, it was a great experience.
Well, with your story, I feel like we have to start in high school and your time then going to Madison because you were a walk on. When you decided that you wanted to walk on at Wisconsin, you played quarterback, you were a great track athlete at Wautoma. Like what was that process like? What were they telling you, kind of position or what they thought? Because I think if I remember correctly, you were all like you were decent enough quarterback, but you defensively is where you kind of really stood out in high school, right?
I was an all-state quarterback.
I guess that's okay. Whatever.
I
All
say
state
the
quarterback, no big
quarterback
deal.
side is where I really stood out. But I was more. I mean, I threw the ball a lot too, but it was kind of D4, just kind of throw the ball up to a good receiver, and let him make a play on it. So I didn't really have to be that accurate. It was more kind of the scramble, and we did a lot of read options, things like that. So I ran the ball a lot. So I ended up having a ton of touchdowns. But yeah, no, I mean for me it was. I was actually recruited to Madison for track. I was recruited to Madison and Minnesota. Had a small scholarship offer for track to Minnesota, but just for me, Wisconsin felt like home. Just fell in love with the campus and everything, and so decided to go to Madison for track. And then it was that summer I just contacted Coach Bielema, who's the head coach at the time, and I was like, "Hey, I'm coming in for track. Can I walk on for football?" Obviously, sent him my film and stuff, and so that's how it started. I thought I was going to do both football and track, and probably I figured I was going to be a receiver. I mean, I grew up playing as a receiver, and it was my freshman year. Our quarterback, he was JV tight end as well, and so but at that point I was a receiver, and so that practice we didn't know, like he ended up breaking his thumb, but we didn't know it. And coach was like, "Hey, who wants to be quarterback for the rest of practice?" And nobody said anything, so I'm like, "Whatever, I'll do it. I don't care." I didn't even know the count. I was just like messing around, like blue 82, just doing like the NFL stuff. And then I get to school the next day, and we found out he broke his thumb. So my coach said, "You got to be quarterback." And so then I ended up switching to quarterback and stayed there throughout my high school career. So for me, it was always kind of like I love the receiver and get back to that position because I liked the ball in my hands, being able to run and do this type of stuff for the quarterback. It was more pitch and catch. I wasn't really trying to throw the ball that much.
So obviously it was a transition for you then going from high school to college because it is for everybody, but
Right.
especially having to change positions. But you kind of had in your mind that receiver did that, having that in your mind because especially some walk-ons and they're just listed as athletes, don't
Yeah.
necessarily know what they're going to do because you had that mindset. Do you think that kind of helped you then be able to do what you did in Madison and kind of separate yourself as a walk-on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the transition is hard. Obviously going from high school to college, and then you obviously got a position change. It wasn't easy by any means. There were some growing pains the first really year, but I think it probably helped me in the long run because I didn't really have any bad habits that they had to break. I was kind of hey, here's an athlete that give him some coaching and hopefully he takes it and runs with it. So I think that probably helped me out. in the long run, where I was able to get the top coaching and work on my craft, and there really wasn't anything that I had to get rid of that I was used to.
What was the best highlight of playing in Madison? Because I think you got a lot of options here, but what was your favorite from your time in Madison?
Yeah, there's a couple. I mean, I would say, obviously the Big Ten championships. 3 of them we won, and then the Rose Bowls were, obviously fun. They're great games, even though we didn't come home with the trophy. They were all 3 really close games, and we competed in them. So that was a really fun atmosphere. But I would say like games, I would probably say probably 2 games. One would be when we invited the Nebraska into the Big Ten. So it was their first game in the Big Ten. It was at Madison, Camp Randall.
You baptized them. That's what you did.
Yeah, so that was fun. I mean, I just remember early on, I had a fumble on a punt return, and they ended up going down on that drive scoring, and we were behind, but then had a really big. I mean, a good game. Young player. I think that was my sophomore year. But as a young player to come back and be able to, overcome that early adversity and have a really good game, ended up having like a diving catch into the end zone from Russell. And that was kind of the one that got us above, or, put us ahead, and didn't really look back from there. So that was one. And then probably like individual accomplishment would have been Ohio State. I mean, I always had good games against Ohio State. I loved the competition, and their DBs always would talk a bunch of smack, and I always liked that, being able to shut them up a little bit. So I remember my senior year, we played Ohio State at their house, and I don't know, I had like 10 catches, 200 some yards, and a touchdown and really it was lined up against Bradley Roby, who was the first round pick that year. So the media was all hyping that matchup up all week. And to be able to go out there and really dominate. I mean, he had 3 other pass interference calls on him, so I really tore him up. Great player, obviously. He had a really good career on him. He might still be playing, but yeah, definitely had the upper hand in that match.
So you didn't mention it, but one thing, anytime I think of you and your time in Madison, I don't know if it was your first touchdown, but you were a young player and you caught a bomb. I can't remember who the quarterback was, against Indiana. You guys put up like 80 points on a Saturday afternoon against Indiana, and everybody was up in arms because Wisconsin threw the ball deep when they were up by 60 points or whatever. What do you remember about that? Obviously the coaching staff, obviously your team had no issue with it. Do you remember catching any sort of, flack for that big play and that big touchdown that you had when you were a younger player?
Yeah, that was John Budmeyer. You still there? Kind of breaking up. You got me?
Yeah, Bud.
Okay. John Budmeyer is the one that actually threw that touchdown to me. But no, I mean, young players going in, it's not like you're just going to lay down and not do anything. So, no, I didn't really catch any flack. We want to go out there and do a weekend too. So it was fun to have that opportunity.
So you end up getting drafted to the Packers. Like, how did you view that? Because obviously, I think even though you're a 5th round pick, there's pressure that comes with that, because most people who are a Packer fan, chances are they've seen you play on Saturdays, and they're also Badger football fans. Did you embrace that? How did you view that when you first were coming into the NFL? Because obviously it's a dream to play for the team you grew up rooting for.
Yeah, obviously it was a blessing to be able to be picked up by the team that you grew up rooting for. But I think there was, and I didn't really feel the pressure, but I think because you had the pressure regardless. It's the NFL. You got thousands and thousands of people trying to take your job, and so you already feel that. But I didn't really feel it, from the fans or any unrealistic expectations in that sense on myself. But I think a lot of the fans did kind of have unrealistic expectations, and I don't know if I kind of felt that stress, almost with like the coaching staff, because every time there was an interview, it's, oh, why isn't Jared playing, or this or that? And it's like, realistically, a 5th round guy isn't really expected to even make the team, let alone, contribute or start. And so, especially in the situation I had, I had Jordy Nelson ahead of me. I had Randall Cobb. Devontae Adams was a 2nd round pick. Obviously, he's one of the best to play, and best in the league right now. So it's kind of, how are you supposed to play when you got 3 guys that are at that level? There's only so many opportunities. So, I felt like, the there was that almost, stress because there was, hey, why isn't this guy playing? Because obviously people saw my career and whatnot, but it's also a business. Not saying I'm better than any of those guys, but it is also a business where if you're paying a guy so much per year or drafted high, like you have to have them succeed, and not that the other guys can't, but like hey, they got to perform too. So. And they were drafted in that position or made that much money for a reason. They're obviously good players. So didn't really feel it. I got myself, but definitely felt, like there was always like, it's always like, just stop asking those questions. It's like, 'cause it's kind of unrealistic expectations there.
Well, but your quarterback would also kind of defend you. Like, I mean, Aaron Rodgers would, give you shout outs from time to time. How did you develop a presumably good relationship with him?
Yeah, I think, he's a really cerebral player. And I think coming from like a quarterback, back in high school, like just understanding concepts, this and that, I think was able to pick up on that. But I think, injuries were tough. I mean, you'd have a small injury here or there that would kind of keep you out. And then that's just kind of in the league, it's tough. I mean, if you can't obviously practice or play, like there's no reason to have you on the team. So, and I always tell people about that too. Like in college, I mean, shoot, I broke my sesamoid bone, played through that my whole sophomore year. I had to have a plate in my foot, but super painful. But in college, you're maybe 90 percent or whatever it is, still might be better than the next guy. Where in the league, if you got a nagging injury, unless if you're one of the superstars, you're 80%, 85% just isn't going to cut it. So I mean, I had some injuries like the last year in Green Bay, I had an injury. Kind of pulled something in my quad, and I still practiced, still played on it, but just couldn't do what I needed to do. And so that was kind of the frustrating part for me because, even though I did have like the ACL my rookie year, but just, you had an injury here or there that was just was nagging, and you still played through it. But at the end of the day, you just weren't, good enough. So that was frustration there because, I feel like I had a really good, and even my rookie year had a really, good start to the training camp, the offseason, all of that. Was starting to get some reps with the ones, and then got rolled up out of my knee, and my ACL was out there. So, but when you start that way and you build that rapport with the quarterback, you're obviously excited about it. But things happen, and like I said, everything happens for a reason, and whether you know why now or you figure it out later, or maybe you never figure it out, but you just kind of go with it, and you got to make do with what you got.
Have you figured out the reason? I mean, you said maybe you figured out, maybe you don't. Have you figured out the reason why things kind of went for you in terms of the injuries you had in the NFL?
Like why it happened. I mean, not really. I don't really dwell on that, honestly. But hey, my time, I was ready to be done after my fourth year. A lot of years wear and tear. I mean, I was talking to Randall Cobb last year at a golf outing in the summer. I'm like, I can't believe you're still playing. It's crazy. I couldn't imagine having to suit it up. So I'm happy to be done. I mean, obviously you miss parts of it. You miss the locker room. You miss the competition. You miss the guys. But the other parts, I'm happy. I've hung them up.
You mentioned earlier Russell Wilson. You've been obviously very fortunate to play with a couple of really good quarterbacks who've come through the state of Wisconsin. Russell, obviously, Aaron. Kind of compare and contrast those guys. What was Russ like back in 2011? He was only your teammate for a season, but he seemed. I mean, you guys voted him captain. What was Russ like back in 2011?
Yeah, kind of leaving a guy out, you leaving Stafford out like that. I can't believe you're doing Stafford like
Oh,
that.
okay. We can get Stafford. We can get to Stafford too. Super Bowl champ. That's my bad. I apologize for that.
Yeah, can't leave him hanging. I mean, that was kind of a decision once I was done with the Packers. It was like I had an opportunity to go to the Bears. I couldn't even tell you who their quarterback was I think that was 2017. I'm like, I'm not going there. I got to go somewhere with a good quarterback, especially after playing with. I mean, we had Scott Tolzien at Madison, who obviously played in the league a couple of years. Didn't have the success as like Russell or obviously Aaron and Stafford, but Russell, Scott, a couple other guys, and then obviously going to Aaron. I was like, I'm not going to some just nobody. I got to go somewhere good. I can't handle a bad quarterback. But no, Russell, yeah, when he came, it was, you just knew he had it right away. Could hit every throw, was mobile, could walk in a room and he had the leadership ability that you'd want to follow. So I remember Nick Tooney was our other receiver. He was a little bit older than me. But I think when Russell came, he was like the first guy to work out with him. I was out of town or something, and he texted me afterwards, and he's like, he's got it, man. And he obviously did. So it was a really cool experience. I would say, obviously I got to play more with Russell, and I was in college. I mean, I was playing every snap. So, am I going to say like, hey, obviously, yeah, I had probably more fun, in college and with Russell and catching as many passes as I did. But Hall of Famer, in Aaron, and then you got obviously Stafford, and I'd say Stafford and Aaron are obviously really identical in the way, their toughness, their escapability in the pocket, mobility, moving around. I think both really accurate. I would say maybe, in my experience with both of them, great quarterbacks. Maybe Aaron just had a little bit, maybe a little bit better accuracy. Maybe, and I'm talking, we're talking an inch or two. Maybe if a DB's on your back, maybe Aaron puts it, an inch further out. But both incredibly accurate and both great players. So yeah, I was blessed to be able to play with a lot of great talent, and enjoyed each and every one of those guys.
So what have you been up to since the playing days have ended for you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, so I'm a financial advisor now back kind of in my hometown. I'm just south of that. I'm in Montello, Wisconsin, so a small town. I enjoy to hunt. I can be outdoors and stuff, and so I got some places to hunt around here. So kind of wanted to call it home, and it's really close to everything. I can get to, Madison in 50 minutes, get to Point, get to Oshkosh, Milwaukee. I can really get anywhere I need to be. So yeah, I got my office down here. This is actually just going. I just finished my 5th year, started my 5th year, one of the two. So it's been kind of crazy how fast time goes, but yeah, as soon as I was done, I jumped right into it. Really took 2 months off to kind of, relax, rewind a little bit, and then got into the next thing.
Was that always the plan, kind of financial? I don't know what you got your degree in from at UW.
I kind of got, bachelor's of science, got his basic communication degree in Madison. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to be a physical therapist. Like I got enough credits for all that stuff. I think I would have had to go and get, I think, like 9 more credits for some of the labs that I wasn't able to take because of practice, if I wanted to go to grad school for physical therapy. But when I was done playing, it just wasn't a passion that I felt I wanted to do. And so I just kind of gave myself a couple months, like I said, 2 months, and then I just started doing a bunch of different job interviews. I told myself I wouldn't turn anything down, just, hey, whatever's out there, we'll see. And ended up jumping right into the financial industry. I mean, I had an advisor, did some of my own stuff, so I was kind of interested in it, but never thought of it as a career. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, we're just helping people, and I enjoy the market and all that kind of stuff. So it's been good.
What about, but before we let you go, as you kind of take a sit, as you mentioned, now you've been out of the league 4 or 5 years. What about Packer fans kind of sets them apart? Because, again, I feel like you've got the connection with them because you were one of us. But what sets Packer fans apart from Lions fans or other fans you saw across the league in your time?
Yeah, I think just the support. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's because there's not, as much else to do in Wisconsin per se. I mean, maybe that's part of it, but it's always been just kind of hey, it's, Sundays, church, football, Saturdays, watching the Badgers. I mean, it's just kind of the way you grow up around here. And, you got so many different things that you do. I mean, you got all these outings in the summers. You got, meet and greets. I mean, the support is, crazy. And that's and people are always asking about Aaron this year and, how's it, what do you think, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's kind of exciting for, him, I think, just experience another. Obviously it's nice if you can stay with one team your whole career, but it also is nice to experience something else because you really don't know, what are the differences in different organizations. And so to be able to see like another organization, like for myself, when I went to the Lions, it was cool to kind of see how, fans were, how the organization handled different things, what did I like, what did I not. But to be able to, experience that for yourself, you can kind of see both sides, and it really, makes you appreciate, really how good Green Bay is, not only just the organization, but like the fan base. It's just incredible the amount of support that, people have for you. I mean, you look at the family day, during camp. I mean, it's just, amount of people that come out for practices. You just don't have that type of stuff everywhere. And I think other people are or other teams are starting to do more of that. But, I think just the support, all around in the state is incredible.
I got one more before I let you go, and it popped in as I see you have your Badger jerseys on display behind you for those who may be listening to this via audio and not seeing the video of it. Did you have any Packer jerseys growing up? Like, who were your favorite players as you were growing up watching the team?
Yeah. I mean, I would have, I think and I think it was Bill Schrader, 84. I
Oh,
think that
okay.
was, I mean, as a little kid. But obviously, like Brett Favre, Reggie White, I had both of theirs. Then as I got older, I mean, just watching like Donald Driver, always was a big fan of him. Greg Jennings, I mean, all those guys. And then I was in college by the time, Jordy, James Jones, all the guys that I was able to play with, Cobby. It was. I mean, there was a lot of different receivers that I always enjoyed watching growing up.
Yeah, golden era of Packers wide receivers, certainly, as you were growing up in the mid to late 2000s. Jared, I want to say thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. Thank you for jumping on and kind of reminiscing about some of your playing days with us here on ESPN Wisconsin.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Again, Jared Abbrederis joining us on Pack Summer. We'll be back with more coming up later this week.